ESPN. Let's do it, Jack!
Yeah, we pull into the 5 o'clock hour. It's 30 minutes commercial free. It's Sedano and Cap. A-Cam, Andy Kamenetzky is in for Sedano. George is calling the championship game tonight in the in-season tournament on ESPN Radio.
The NBA Cup, you mean?
That's exactly what I mean.
NBA Cup.
But I want to turn my attentions back to something I heard last night. I was mentioning this earlier today. So I got into the car last night. I was watching the Vikings and the Bears. And I got into my car and I hear Kevin Harlan and Kurt Warner, two of my all-time favorites, and they're having this discussion. If you could redraft today, would you still take Caleb Williams number one? Where would you put Jayden Daniels into this mix? How about Bo Nix? What about Drake Maye? Yeah. So I said, I would love to hear what Kurt has to say about it, even though I was listening to it on the radio last night in the broadcast. Here is Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, NFL Network commentator, and Westwood One color commentator, Kurt Warner, back on ESPN LA. Kurt, appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. How's things going?
Everything is really good, my friend, and happy holidays to you as well. It's always good to talk to you.
Yeah, always, man. Hey, so that conversation you guys were having last night was really interesting to me. Caleb Williams was number one. Jayden Daniels was number two. Drake Maye was number three. And Bo Nix, I want to say, was like number 9 in the draft, somewhere in that neighborhood. And all four of these kids are already starting. How would you draft them today based on what you've seen?
Well, yeah, I mean, just based off of the sample size that we have right now, I would probably go Jayden Daniels 1, Bo Nix 2, Drake Maye 3, and Caleb Williams 4, just based off of what I've seen at this point and trying to break down and look at the different situations and what we have. But again, it's such an early sample size for me. You got to see guys, in that position for a couple of years as moving parts are going on, and you start to get a sense of who they are as quarterbacks. But, again, based off of, the first 15 weeks of the season, I would probably redraft them in that order.
But, Kurt, if Jayden Daniels would have gone 1 to Chicago, how different would his rookie season be than what it currently is or what Caleb's is?
Again, nothing is ever apples to apples. You can't just put a player, and kind of assume that they're going to be the exact same player or a team's going to do the exact same things, with their players. So it's really hard. I mean, Drake Maye has maybe been the most impressive to me just in terms of what I expected and what he's doing. And he's probably in the least advantageous situation of all of them when you look at the players around him. So maybe him in a different situation, he bolts up to number 1, if he's in Washington or Denver. And so I think that's, we always got to caution ourselves. I used to have conversations with people about that. Like, what if I was in New England for 20 years? Would I have, won 7 Super Bowls or, 6 Super Bowls there and been to as many? Like, we can always speculate with that when we've got, good players or similar players, or we want to look at the situation, and you can never really do that sort of thing. So you got to just take everybody for where they're at in the situation that they're in, and you say, how are they playing in that situation? Because that's the only situation we can know for sure, what they would be doing. Do I believe Caleb Williams might be having more success in a different system? Well, yeah, I mean, I do. I really like what Sean Payton has done for Bo Nix in terms of the way he set things up and the way that he's created, some easy throws and being better up front and some of those things. But again, it does us no good to try to speculate on all of that stuff. You got to just take a guy for where he's at, and then you have to assess what he's doing play to play, game to game in that situation, and and then evaluate them and look at where they can get better.
How important do you think, Kurt, it is just for a young quarterback to be in an organization with stability? Because, regardless of what you think of Caleb Williams' trajectory and his potential as a quarterback, there's been a lot of chaos within the Bears, and I would assume, at least, that could make just the learning curve that much harder.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, when we're talking about stability is about success. Stability comes from, having a level of success within an organization. And so when you talk about stability, it would be being in a situation where you're connected to the right guys and their system is working well for you and the pieces have come together. And so now you have stability. And so that is obviously really, really important for any quarterback, is to have, a situation that fits who they are and what they do and what they do well. And the sooner you can find that, the better you're going to be. I mean, I look at my situation is that not only was I surrounded by talented players in St. Louis, but to me, what made us so good or made me so good early on was I was in a situation where the system truly fit the way I played the game. And the way I saw the game was the way that Mike Martz created plays. And so it just fit, and it allowed me to play my best very, very quickly and have success very early because of that. And that, to me, I think is always the most important thing for a quarterback, is to find a guy in that room that sees it like you do, that understands how you see it, can build it based on the way that you see it. And now you truly have a chance to have success and have success early.
Kurt Warner, the Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP from the NFL Network. And last night I was listening to him on Westwood One and having this amazing conversation about the 4 rookie quarterbacks who are all starting and how you might consider reseeding them. Kurt, I'm with you, by the way, on Drake Maye. I didn't see that much of his career at North Carolina, and I never really paid attention to the Patriots, since Brady left. But, of course, I'm locked in on the Patriots. I was there this weekend at that Arizona-New England game. He made a play that, it was from the Aaron Rodgers old school book of just somehow flipping a ball into the end zone. It was dangerous, but it was exciting. And I really hope that Bob Kraft keeps that crew together, because otherwise, if you start changing head coaches and coordinators on a rookie quarterback, to me, I look at what happened in the early part of Derek Carr's career. Every year, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. And he put up numbers, but he couldn't win because there was no consistency. What do you think they do there with that coach and with that quarterback?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, really got a first year together. So, I always feel like it takes time. And also just, I think Drake's playing good football. And so, yeah, would I like to see them do some different things with their offensive scheme to help him out? Sure. Would I like to see them get more skill players around him that can make the game easier on him? Sure, I would. But I definitely don't think, based on the way that you've seen Drake Maye play this year, that you look and say, oh, they need a new coach in terms of helping him play good football. Because, again, coming out, I didn't have him this high because of some technical issues that he had. I didn't see him seeing the field as well as he is right now when I was watching him in college. So something's been done that's been really, really good with Drake Maye. But I just think there's some limitations in their scheme and their skill players that haven't allowed him to accelerate. And so I think that's something that you definitely have to address, is to help to get the best out of him and the best out of, that team offensively. You do have to make some adjustments. I don't know if those adjustments are actually having to change a coach, because I think it's early in the process, and most people have been impressed with what Drake Maye has done and the success that he's had, to the level that he could within the New England system.
Speaking of young quarterbacks, there's been a lot of attention over the last couple of weeks with Bryce Young suddenly starting to click a little bit more, looking more comfortable out there. Is there anything that you're noticing that could explain why it's starting to come together for him? Because it was not that long ago when people were talking about whether or not he would end up with a really short career, period.
Yeah, again, it's hard to know and to pinpoint like what changed. I do think there is always something to watching somebody else do something. And we actually did Bryce's first game back. It was actually the game in Germany, the first game back after the benching. And we asked him a little bit about that. And, and he did say, one of the great things is I got to watch Andy prepare. I got to watch Andy play. I got to watch him play within this system and learn some things from him. And, I'm a firm believer in the old notion that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Is that a lot of young guys or players come into the league and they think they know. They think they know how to prepare. They think they know how to be an NFL quarterback. They think they know what it takes to be successful on Sunday afternoon. And it's not until you realize you don't know that you realize you don't know. And so sometimes it takes stepping back and watching someone else and seeing how it's supposed to be done. And then you go, oh, that's how you're supposed to do it. Like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. And so I think sometimes that can be really, really important. And I think one reason why, some of the guys, me, I was on a team for an entire year before I became the starter. Patrick Mahomes stood behind, Alex Smith for a year. Jordan Love was behind Aaron Rodgers. And so not only do you not have the pressure of having to be thrown in and succeed to these high levels and be the savior of a team, but you get to sit back and, learn from osmosis sometimes. What is Aaron saying in the meetings? How is he dealing with his wide receivers? How do they do film sessions? What is he talking about? What is he looking at? What notes is he taking? What's important to him? What's his checklist? Like, all of these different things. And so when these young guys get thrown in right off the bat, they're just trying to figure it out on their own. And, it's so much, hey, go out there and succeed, and then try to learn while you're trying to succead, instead of going, hold on, let's pull them back. Let's make sure they're ready. Let's make sure they understand the process. Let's make sure they understand how to, lead a group of men in a huddle, and how they handle the media on Tuesday after a bad game. And, let's make sure that they know what we expect of them, what they're supposed to be doing. Let's give them the tools to be successful. So, I just think that's so vital. And some of these guys never get that.
Right.
And, some of these young guys even don't have an Andy Dalton in the room.
Yep.
So they're in a room where there's nobody that can really show them, and nobody that can really take them under their wing to teach them what they need. It's one thing that, I always try to make myself available to as many quarterbacks and young quarterbacks in the league as I possibly can. And it's one reason I want to do that, is I want to give them a different perspective. I want to talk them through what I'm looking at and how I see play, when it's game plan, and what am I looking at when I'm, when I'm watching on film, and what's the first thing and those kinds of things, is you want to just make sure that you can show them and they can check the list. Oh yeah, I do that. Oh, I do that. Oh no, I've never done that. Talk to me. Like, you want them to have that. And, it's not as easy as just showing up and assuming that they know, and assuming that they've got all the tools they need to be a successful starter in the NFL. And so, I have to believe that was part of, the change that we've seen in Bryce Young. I'm seeing him get the ball out quicker. I'm seeing him able to handle pressure better now than he did early on. And, I do believe some of that was taking a step back and watching it and learning from a pro like Andy Dalton. And it's translated into being a better quarterback this time around.
Kurt Warner, the Hall of Famer, is on Sedano and Cap here on 710 ESPN. Hey, Kurt, before you go, you got to tell us what you think about what has happened this year in the NFC West, specifically about your team, the Rams, our team, the Rams. I mean, how these guys have persevered through all of the injuries and now find themselves sitting atop the division. What do you make of the Rams?
I mean, the biggest thing with the Rams is going to be consistency, because they've been kind of up and down, and they've been kind of in and out. Even in the course of games, you'll see a really bad, half. I remember the Seattle game that they played, where they ended up winning it late, where they did absolutely nothing for the entire first half. And they got a couple interceptions from Geno Smith, and then they find their way back, and then Matt makes that unbelievable throw in overtime. I think it was overtime or late in the game for the touchdown. So to me, it's about consistency and stacking 16 minutes together, because when you look at their team, when they're healthy, they got a lot of playmakers. Like, they got a lot of difference-making type guys, starting with Staff, and then, Puka, and Kyron Williams in the backfield, and then those two young guys on the defensive line that can come up and wreak havoc and get pressure on the quarterback. So they got a lot of, difference-making, game-changing type players, even though they're a young football team. And so, the consistency part of it is what you asked to say, can they make a run to the Super Bowl? They're going to have to be more consistent. They're going to have to show up for 60 minutes. But you also know that that's a team to me that would scare anybody. If you get to the playoffs in the first round for sure, you don't want to play the Rams because you know what they're capable of when they're hitting on all cylinders. And so it's going to be fun to watch if they can develop that consistency down the stretch. And then really what kind of noise they can make come playoff time.
Kurt Warner. Kurt, thank you very much for being available to us, man. I know you've been out traveling and on the road, so to give us this kind of time, we really do appreciate it. We'll talk to you again down the line.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. There you go. Kurt Warner, my man.
What a story.
Quarterback talk. You know what's amazing? He talks about how he makes himself available. You have no idea. Like, this guy is, like, literally communicating with so many of the quarterbacks around the NFL. Not because he's like some quarterback guru or he was the greatest of all time, although he's one of the all-time greats. He loves coaching, loves to study the film, loves to give feedback. Amazing guy.
I mean, respectfully, Cappy, he made himself available to you.
Mm.
If he's making himself available to you,
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's making himself available to quarterbacks around the league.
Kurt Warner stopping by, everybody. That's good football. That's football.
I did not expect, by the way, that elaborate of a breakdown of everything with Bryce Young.
No, me neither.
I was like, damn.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask him about Sam Darnold, too, and his resurgence, but he went so long on Bryce Young. I'm like, let's at least get him to talk about the Rams and let's get him out of here.